What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench, guys, for another episode of the 12 Sprues. Today we are on build day number 3 and I'm very excited to go ahead and push on and see what we're going to be building today. So let's go ahead, waste no time, grab that box and dive right on in. Now I gotta tell you, I've been having a lot of fun. And yeah, I've only built 2 kits so far out of the 12. I have been having a blast. We started off with the Jaguar, we went on to an Albatross, and now I don't know what we're gonna be building, but I'm excited to find out. Reach around inside, grab that label, pull it on out. Oh, sweet, guys. I was a little worried there. This is going to be a fantastic kit, far better than that rodent Albatross. This is a 1/72nd scale Hawker Hurricane Mark I by Airfix. This is an early Hurricane. It's the Mark I Battle of France, so it's got a fixed pitch 2-bladed propeller. It's got that cool white and black underside color scheme, which my good buddy Duncan tells me was for identification purposes, so thank you. I've got a single sheet of decals, nothing really fancy here, just some rondels and some markings, identification codes and whatnot. And like all Airfix kits, we have a stellar set of instructions, so that's going to be fun. We have a single poly bag with all of our parts in it, as usual. Let's go ahead and open it up and check out some of the parts. I have a feeling they'll be pretty nice, but let's go ahead and give a little closer look. As I suspected, parts are beautiful. So far, we have nice, subtle recessed panel lines. We have some alternate parts for the Mark I, as opposed to the later Mark I and probably Mark IIs. So it looks actually really, really nice. The Hurricane had a lot of cloth surfaces, and we have that nicely molded in here. Very subtle. We have an absolutely beautiful set of wings. We do have some gun ports. I might want to drill those out, but otherwise, yeah, we are looking really, really good here, guys. I'm really excited to go ahead and jump in here. We have, of course, a beautiful set of Airfix instructions, and like always, Airfix tends to offer Humbrol colors for all of your paints. We luckily have a Humbrol conversion chart right here. I've also heard it's available online as well, but I've got the paper one here. So we're going to go ahead and jump in, get the construction started, drill out some gun ports, clean up some parts, get that cockpit painted, and see where we go from there. So onwards and uppers, guys, let's see what we can do. Let's get going. We are moving right along, guys, and I gotta tell you, so far, these parts are beautiful. I'm having so much fun. We've come in and done a little bit of painting on the internals for the cockpit. We used a silver color for the bottom portion of the cockpit and an interior REF cockpit green for the upper portion. We have a black instrument panel as well as a silver seat and silver bulkheads and whatnot. So that's awesome, but I think we need to go ahead and do something a little bit special here. So I've decided to go ahead though and add in a little extra spice to the cockpit. Even though you're not really going to be able to see a whole lot, we're going to add in some seat belts. Now we can't actually have the canopy open. Unfortunately, it's not designed to be open, but we are going to be able to see down inside. So even though we're not going to see a whole lot of detail, we are going to notice larger things like the seat. So this way, I'm going to add in some Tamiya seat belts just to give you an impression of what they would look like, give a little bit of action, and that's it. We're also going to go ahead and paint those seat belts. I'm going to use some Tamiya buff for that. Again, I'm not going to add any buckles. I'm not going to add any clasps or latches or anything like that. I'm just going to give a basic appearance of seat belts, give it a quick color here of Tamiya buff, a bit of a wash, and we're going to call it quits. Now for washes, I've decided to go ahead and use some Army Painter Soft Wash. It's just a real easy color. It's going to add a little bit of shadow and a little bit of dirt and grime onto the seatbelts themselves without going too crazy. Then I might come back a little bit later, add 1 drop of Tamiya panel liner just to go ahead and add some shadow, but that's it. I'm not going to do a whole lot to the cockpit. Like I said before, you're not going to be able to see down through the canopy very well. You'll see some stuff, kind of the basic overall shapes and whatnot, but you're not going to see the detail. So this is going to be perfectly fine just to give you a feeling that something's going on in there. Now, like most of the aircraft we'll probably be building here throughout the 12 sprues, we have a decal for the instrument panel. I went ahead and I put a little bit of microset down on there, plopped that decal down on top of that, and I'm adding a little bit of microsol. Not that I want it to conform to any details or anything, but I find the microsol helps to kind of get it stuck in place and it doesn't move. I want it to be in place and I want it to be solid because I'm going to go ahead and start assembling the fuselage. So let's go ahead and jump back into a time lapse, get the fuselage built up, get that cockpit assembled, get the canopy masked off, get the wings attached. Let's just see what we can do. Onwards and uppers, guys. Let's do it. So now guys, we are moving right along to painting and priming. I'm going to go ahead and mask off some of the open areas like the cockpit and the wheel wells using paper towel, wadded up, shoved in, and then dampened just slightly with some water. That's going to go ahead and act as basically a mask. Keep paint from getting all over our cockpit, all over our wheel wells, and that way we can come in, we can prime, we can pre-shade, we can paint without really worrying about getting paint where we don't want it. Now, I would normally just glue on the canopy and call it a day, but there's a little strip of fuselage that sits right underneath the sliding portion of the canopy that you're going to notice. So I can't glue it down just yet. I'm going to have to come in first, paint the area, then glue the canopy down. Once I get that done, I can then continue painting the aircraft. Shouldn't be all that difficult. So I think now we're going to go ahead and, like I said, move on to priming, pre-shading, and camo colors. For the prime, I'm going to go ahead and use some basic Staunerez gray primer, and then we're going to come in with some pre-shade of NATO black. Again, that's kind of my go-to thing. I think it's going to work well with the colors that I've got for the camo. Now for the camo colors, I'm going to be using tried and true Vallejo paint, earth brown, and it's going to be that dark green. That's a very typical early war British camo. I love trying to freehand camo, even though I may not do exactly a perfect job. I really enjoy trying it, so that's what we're going to do with this. Now the undersurface though, that's a little bit different. It's actually going to be a white and black undersurface split right down the middle of the fuselage. So this is going to be a really fun exercise in how to paint black, how to paint white, and how to get them weathered down. Not saying it's going to be perfect, but it's going to give me an opportunity to practice. So with that being said, let's go ahead and pull that primer. We're going to go ahead and start priming everything pre-shade. We're going to get that camo painted. We're going to get that undersurface colors. I'm really excited, guys. Let's see what we can do. Back into that time lapse, push on. Let's get some paint on some plastic. All right, guys, we are back. I gotta tell you, that was so much fun. But now we have our brown, our green, our white and black all painted. I tried to go ahead, allow some of that pre-shade to show through. I think you can kind of get a feel for it here and there, so I'm happy with it. We're gonna go ahead and glue down the canopy just so we can go ahead and finish off the rest of the aircraft. Now I've also gone ahead and put on the landing gears and the landing gear covers. So we need to go ahead and put on the wheels, and I think we'll be more or less in good position. You'll notice I've actually removed the rudder. I did that because when I overcoated the entire aircraft with the different camo colors, I was concerned that when I went to go place the rudder decal onto the rudder itself, you might see some color variations underneath the decal. I went ahead and primed that in Steiner's white primer. I removed it from the aircraft, first of all, to make it easier to paint. And now when I go ahead and re-glue it back onto the aircraft, hopefully when I put that decal on, it'll be nice, uniform, it'll be an even color. Also, one other area we need to go ahead and focus on is the engine, or I should say the exhausts that come out of the side of the engine. Now we've actually taken these exhaust ports and we've painted them with a rust color. It's a little bright, to be honest, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to overcoat it with some washes. So I think that's going to help to kind of tone it down and mute it. I think this is going to be good enough. Plus, when I come back in with some basic powders and whatnot, that's also going to tone it down. So I think no matter what, we're going to be okay with just the plain old rust paint. And lastly, guys, we're going to go ahead and install that rudder. It's ready to go. Like I mentioned before, we primed it with Steiner's white primer. So now we can go ahead and glue it back down to the aircraft. And then once we get around to decaling, we can slap that rudder decal on and it should be an even coloring beneath the decal. So I think that's going to be a good move to make. So let's go ahead and jump into our next time lapse, guys. This is actually going to be the last time lapse of the episode. We have a lot to do though. We need to go ahead and gloss coat the entire aircraft. I'll use Future floor polish for that. Then we'll come in with our decals once that is fully cured. And after the decals are on, we'll go ahead and do a final assembly, do all the last little bits and pieces there. Going to do a little bit of weathering as well, probably use some panel liners, probably go ahead and use some powders. Nothing too fancy, but I think it's going to be enough for this particular build. Hit it with a satin finish. We'll paint the landing lights, add a aerial wire, and then we'll be done. For my satin finish, I've been using a homemade mixture of Winsor Newton matte varnish and Future. 2 parts Future to 1 part matte varnish. That's been working out decently. I'm happy with it. So let's go ahead and jump into that time lapse. Let's get this kit finished up, guys. Alright everybody, we are back and I have finished my 1/72nd scale Airfix Hawker Hurricane Mark I. And what a great model kit it was too, guys. Coming off of that rodent albatross, oh man, this was like night and day. This kit practically fell together without any effort. So let me go ahead and grab it for you and we'll show you what I came up with. And here it is, guys. This is a finished product for our Hawker Hurricane Mark I. I like how this has turned out. We've got the decals on, we've got a little bit of weathering here and there. We've got a free-handed camo pattern. Getting a close-up here, as you can see, we did a little bit of weathering with some AK panel liners. I did a little bit of streaking with some weathering powders by AIM, like I typically do. We've got our aerial installed. I did end up putting on the wrong aerial mast, but I went ahead and doctored it up off camera, so it's not that big of a deal. We strung in some easy line, we're good there. As you can see from the undersurface, I used some AK panel liners for the white, and I used a MIG panel liner for the undersurface of the black. It was kind of like a charcoal gray, so I think it really helps. We've got our wheels on, of course. We added in some splitter plates and actuators there for the radiator underneath there. We did do a little bit of work in the cockpit, as you saw. We added some seat belts and all that, but really you can't see much in there anyway, so I think that was all it needs to spice it up just a little bit. But that's it, guys. We are done. Like I said, build day 3 is in the bag. I loved this kit. It was so much fun, guys. And what a night and day difference from the albatross, right? That was such a hard kit. This kit was vastly easier. All I did was throw an aerial on the back of there. I threw some seatbelts into the cockpit, added some actuators there just for fun in that under fuselage radiator. That's it, guys. The rest of the aircraft went together perfectly. Just enough detail for the size. Breath of fresh air from that albatross for sure. We are going to go ahead and call it quits. We're going to move on to day number 4. And until then, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on the next episode of the 12 Sprues of Kit-mas here on Ben Builds. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.